Hello everybody and welcome to my channel and to my English playlist Sewing Made Easy. My name is Lilo Siegel, I'm from Germany, and it is my pleasure to share some tips and some of my sewing experiences with you. For quite some time I've been watching in YouTube several videos about how to do some special stitching for some ribbons that you want to stitch onto a fabric. Well, I must admit, all the films I saw, they were very nice, and the stitching from those machines, which are automatically done with some icons, are really nice. So I thought, well, I should maybe have a look at those kind of machines. Maybe I'd like to buy myself one. Woo! And then I had a little shock, because the prices that came into my finding list were really getting me dizzy. So I thought, well, maybe there's somebody else out there who would like to do something like this by doing some real nice embroidery ribbon stitching, let me call it that way. And I sat down on my sewing machine and I started to work something out for you. And that's exactly what I want to show you in this video. And I tell you right away in the beginning, you do not need to be an expert on the sewing machine or in sewing in general, because the way I will explain it to you is really going to be easy. And you do not need any expensive machines for that. It doesn't matter if you have a $50 or €50 sewing machine or a $500 sewing machine or euro machine. I'm using two kinds of stitches to show you this. One is the totally normal straight stitching you use for anything you're stitching together with your sewing machine. And if you have any kind of embroidery stitch, you can use that as well. But let me show you in this video, so if you're interested, then stay tuned right now and watch what I'm going to show you. And just to give you an idea exactly what's coming up in this film, here you see the different possibilities for stitching on ribbons, and that's exactly what I will explain to you now. For this demonstration here now, I will use two different widths of ribbons. The yellow one is about 8 millimeters wide and the red one is 15 millimeters wide. And I will do this first job on my Janome normal household sewing machine. And as I have planned to show you one, of course, with a straight stitch for sewing, but also with an embroidery stitch. So I just take a piece of material first and try out different versions that I could do, or which I think might fit for the ribbon I want to use. Because I can sometimes see on the widths that my embroidery on the machine automatically does, or how I can set it, if maybe one of my ribbons would fit in between of the widths that I have on my ribbon. And that's how you can choose with which stitches you would like to try to put your ribbon on. Sorry, some of the words are not quite so easy for me. As an example, when I hold this 15 millimeter one in between this embroidery stitch here on the right side, I could see that this is the width and I could use it for an idea that I got later on. But now let's get the material and we start with a yellow ribbon with the 8 millimeter one. I will do this now with a nice contrast material to the ribbon so you can really see exactly what I'm doing. To know where you want to position the ribbon, you should first of all put yourself a mark on the material in a straight line. And for this 8 millimeter yellow ribbon, now I will use a normal straight stitch. Make sure you have the setting for your needle for the stitching in the middle set and not to the left or to the right. That will make it easier for you to keep exactly in line. Now, as I know my ribbon is 8 millimeters wide, I will have to position my foot with the needle, that the needle distance to my middle line that I draw is about 1 millimeter less. So let's call it 6 or 7 millimeters. Your needle position should be away from the line you drawn onto your material. Position your ribbon now sideways to your line, and maybe take another ribbon that you have, put it exactly on the other side, so you can clearly see that you're creating a right angle when you got them lying in this position. And the way your ribbon is lying under your presser foot, it is exactly touching the needle which is already set down in your material. So now I slowly start sewing, and I count my stitches exactly until I get to the end of my yellow ribbon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and another one, 6. I'm at the end. We stop here. It's important that my needle is in the material, stuck down in it. And now I turn my material, and in a right angle towards the line that I got drawn, I'll stitch across, and I count how many stitches do I need to get to my line, and the same amount of stitches I continue on. As you could see, there were 3 stitches, so I actually make 6 stitches altogether. Now I take my ribbon, turn it over, and pull it straight where my sewing was on the left side, until again I hit the needle underneath with my ribbon. And there should be my 6 stitches again that I've just done, because that is the width exactly of my ribbon, which I've done before. So again, you saw I turned the material, and of course I got 6 stitches again going across in the right angle. Again, I pull my ribbon over, once turned, as you could see, and it's got to be nice on the edge where your stitches are pulled. So automatically you each time get the same angle of your 90 degrees. Again, 6 stitches over the yellow ribbon to hold it down firmly, and your 6 stitches going across. Make sure you always stay in a right angle. That is quite important if you want the look to be exactly the same. So it is all a repeat from now on until you get to the end, as long as you want to put this ribbon onto your material. And if you do it that way, you will find, of course, it's a little bit of a concentration, but otherwise it's really only counting the stitches that you have going over the ribbon, and counting the stitches you will have going across to start on the other side with the next stitches for the ribbon. And you will find there's really nothing to it. Anybody, really anybody can do this, really, even if you're a real starter on your sewing machine, and you will see it's so much fun to do this nice embroidery with a ribbon. And let me show you now how this looks when I turn this over from the left side, so you get an idea. That's exactly what it's going to look like when you've done that job. So let me get to the next possibility, how to put your ribbons on. For this possibility, I also will use my Janome Skyline, and I'm just chosen the number 59. That's the stitching up and showing you before in the beginning of the video as well. But of course, you can look on your embroidery possibilities that you have on your machine. As an example, you could use any of the other ones. You just have to try out the widths that you got with your ribbon, if it fits in, or as you know, on most of the machines, even on the cheap machines, you can also decide to have a stitch longer or smaller. As an example, that's quite a nice one that I show you there, which I could have used as well. Or of course any of these zigzag kind of possibilities. You must just try this out. But like I said before, it works with quite a few different embroidery settings from those machines. It's all a matter of really working it out yourself. So here again you see my setting for what I'm going to show you right now. And of course, in the moment I got a certain embroidery pattern chosen, I definitely try out on a little piece of material first to make sure, is this really the embroidery I want to use, and will my ribbon really fit with this as well? So the decision is made, so we can start now. And I show you my next possibility. Again, I made myself a mark in the middle, exactly in the position where I want to put this. And now I put exactly my needle in the middle of the embroidery that you can see there. And in that case, it is also exactly in the middle of my line that I draw. And I just start putting a couple of stitches down first, the first side of that, let's call it the pattern from the embroidery, to have a little start before I pick up my ribbon now. As I mentioned to you before, this red ribbon is 15 millimeters wide, but the way I'm doing this now, it will actually end up about 7 to 8 millimeters in the width. You will see why when we continue on now. So this time I will not put it in a right angle, 90-degree angle, because now I have to look how my application runs. So now I put the edge of my ribbon exactly on the first line I've done for my application. So they're lying even on top of each other. And I follow the line that I drew on my material and go straight over my ribbon until I reach the end of it. Then I twist my ribbon over to the other side, so it's exactly lying against the needle again. And again I stitch my pattern from my application to the end of the ribbon corner that's always lying there. So it's actually giving me the measurement or the lengths that I have to stitch automatically as I see it under my presser foot. With other words, each time when I get to the end of the ribbon, I got to stop, I got to turn the ribbon over. I keep on sewing straight because the zigzag that's happening there is the pattern from the application from my sewing machine. So I don't do any turning of the material. I practically sew straight down the line. It's only my ribbon that I keep on turning over to the other sides. You can see it here very clearly now. I'm going to be stitching straight on. You can see it now here. This was our zigzag that I showed you before. So this is really a straight line that you're stitching, but the machine does the going left and right and left and right. But you got to turn the ribbon around, and you got to check that you really stay in line, that you don't maybe once pull the ribbon a little bit too hard and a little too tight, or you're leaving the loop too big. But that's the way you go all the way down, stitching straight and only turning the ribbon. But don't forget the way I showed this to you now. The 15 millimeter wide ribbon is now only 7.5, 8 millimeters wide, which means more or less exactly the half of what the actual width is. But therefore it has a total different look and effect that was created with this particular stitch. Okay, so that was another kind. So we come to one more possibility. I'm going to use the same ribbon, my 15 millimeter ribbon, and I set the machine on a very small and fine normal zigzag stitch. Again, I put myself a line down. You probably can hardly not see it, but I need a little guide to try to be straight anyway. And you can see I started out straight, just putting the ribbon in any kind of angle. I didn't really look, do I have a right angle here or not? Because I want to show you that you can go from quite a big width that you can lie the ribbons down to a much smaller one when we get to the end, because you don't need to stick with these 90 degrees in general. You can do anything you want with these ribbons, with your sewing machine, with any kind of stitching. It should be your design, it should be your decision how you want it. The technique is actually exactly the same what I did with the yellow ribbon, by going once over the ribbon, but just I'm using a zigzag. Then I go across, which means I turn the machine again. Now I go straight down. Now I have to turn the machine again towards the other side. And now if I want to make this smaller, not this big width, I don't count as many stitches going across. I choose less stitches. Pull my ribbon over, and also there automatically I get a different angle because it's getting much tighter now. Just watch out that you pulled it really even on your edge right there, that the stitches are hitting the ribbon when you turned it over. And here again, I'm going to go smaller again that I've just went, so you can see this is all up to you how you want the widths to continue with your ribbon. So continue that job until you at the end, and now look at the result, and you can see the last one we did started out quite wide on the top and went smaller and smaller towards the end, all depending on how you stitch across and how you put the angle then down for your ribbon. So let's continue with two more possibilities, and I really like the look of those two, and I hope you too. And therefore I prepared already something right here for you. As you can see, on the left side I got a normal straight stitch, and on the right side you see an embroidery stitch. The straight stitching I've done with my faff, where I will also now continue on the sewing, and the embroidery of course was done on my janome. And you can see the width in between here is 2 centimeters on the straight stitching, while on my embroidery stitching I have a width between the actual embroidery pattern of about 2 centimeters. You can see that right here, but really what counts is the in-between space between the last leaves in the inside that you can see. But for now I will start with the green straight stitching and a green ribbon, which is again 8 millimeters in the width. So put it in a sideways position of your choice. Look for your green stitching you got underneath, or whichever color you've done, and now stitch over your ribbon exactly on top of your other stitch which you have lying underneath. Now take your ribbon, pull it over to the right side, make sure you're right on top of your underneath stitching right there, and again we will stitch the ribbon down now exactly on top of the underneath stitching that we can see. Make sure you have your stitches set on a small stitch, and don't forget that you have to do a back and forth stitching in the beginning, at the end, and at the end, otherwise your ribbon might fall off when you don't want it to fall off. So now you saw I just folded it over really tight on the stitching that I got there, and stitched over on top of my underneath stitching that I can very, very well see. And that's why it makes it so easy to do this. And the effect is just amazing. And it goes so fast, you don't believe it. And as I said before, I more or less got this exactly turned in a right angle again, as you can see on the in-between spaces on the colors. But it is not necessary. You could have started in a total different sideways position with the ribbon and continued then down with that, and you would get a different effect again. So you see, it's totally simple,
and all up to you. And each project you will start with a different angle, will get a different look, a better look, a look that you like for your garments. And I tell you, it is so much fun to do this, even with your $50, 50 euro sewing machine that you do have. Now, I just did something on purpose here, so you see this as well. I went inside my stitching. I'm going to open this up in a moment again, but that's why I'm not stitching back and forth. Just to give you the idea, you could have also, instead of going all the way across on top of your actual seam that you got there, you could have gone in between and got a different look again. So you see, it is all possible. It is your taste, it is your design, and it is your garment that you will be making look good with that kind of ribbon work you can do here. So here we are, already at the end of this beautiful job, doing this ribbon job with our cheap sewing machines that we got. So let's get to the next one. This lovely embroidery that I have coming down. And now I like to work with 2 ribbons. I'm going to use the 8mm yellow ribbon, which I used before, and the 15mm red ribbon that I used. And we're going to join them together for a different look again. I like to show this with these 2 ribbons to you, just to give you more ideas. You do not need to stick with 1 ribbon. You don't need to stick with 2 ribbons. You can also use 3 ribbons with the same technique, with the same method that I'm showing you here, to do exactly the same, but each time you will get a different result and a different look. And believe me, you will love it, because it's really so much fun to work with that kind of stuff. I didn't believe it myself until I started with this. So start in any angle that you wish and fold it over, because I've done this on purpose here now. You can see that when you do it like I've just done it, with a very, very slight angle only, and you pull it over, you're actually covering up everything that you've done so far. So that wouldn't be right. That means with these white ribbons, the wider they are, the bigger my angle is got to be. And if I'm putting 2 ribbons next to each other, of course it's not 8 and 15. It's altogether now 23mm. So I really need a long angle, a very, very sideways going position, how I'm putting my ribbons down here on the material. And of course, for my stitching now, I will not stitch directly into my stitching underneath. No, I want to stay right inside the 2 embroidery stitching that I got. And to make this job totally simple for me, I take one of my straight edged patterns that I got, and I put it exactly onto my embroidery, onto the inside leaf that I can see, and stitch along my pattern, because then I can actually see exactly where I got to stitch along. And when I fold my ribbons over now, I can exactly see my lovely embroidery there, which I want to show out and to stick out. And that is exactly now how I continue on all the way to the end. That's how simple it is. This I cut off a little bit, otherwise I don't see my embroidery underneath. So again, I'm folding my 2 ribbons over now, and I will take my pattern, put it in position so I can see the inside of my little leaves, the golden leaves of my embroidery that I got there. So they really still show out, as you can see this now. And again, I'm folding this over, putting it really nice flat down, put my pattern on. Watch where's the embroidery. I don't want this to hide away while stitching over. And the next one is finished. And that's the way I continue all the way down to the bottom. And while you continue, you suddenly see God, this is a total different look that I'm creating here now. It's like a 3D object, as if you had seams where you've been putting the ribbons underneath. It's really so beautiful. So play around with this and imagine you making a nice little dress for a cute little girl, and you put something like that on a pocket, on the front, on the neck, on a sleeve, and for the girl's dress. How much they will love this. Don't forget the back stitching in the beginning and again at the end, because you don't want this to open up when you've finished with it. And as I said, continue all the way through to the end. And when you've done a couple already, you suddenly see, God, I can see this pattern so well now. Okay, I don't even need to put an extra pattern underneath to hold this in position. And you just continue on. And believe me, I know I repeat myself at this very moment, but just watching it again when I did this, because I've done the video in the German language, in my language first, before I did this translation here for you. Believe me, I thought to myself, thank God I had this idea to work this out, how to do this without having an expensive machine that I need to buy. It's really not necessary. The main thing is, use your imagination for ideas like that. And I think, or I'm sure, you will be surprised about yourself what you can suddenly do with lovely sewing items and creating new styles, new looks for yourself and for your friends. And suddenly you're surprised if somebody says, where did you get that? Where did you buy that? God, it must have been expensive. No, it wasn't. It's just fun doing it, and all you can do is enjoy your own work with such fantastic jobs. Well, my friends, my English-speaking friends, I really hope I could give you a good idea and a good tip this time for your next embroidery jobs, for your next job on your sewing machine in general. I wish you all the best, and mainly stay healthy, and maybe give me a comment on my job and tell me in which part of the world you're watching me. I would really enjoy this. I would like this. Thanks for watching. Stay healthy. God bless, and take care. This was for you from Germany, all the way from Germany. My name was Lilo, or better to say, my name is Lilo. Yeah. I come around again because I will soon have an update on this where I used one of these stitches on a man's shirt, and you will get that video in the next couple of days to watch. Thanks again for watching, and bye bye. See you again. Tschüss.